Hello, everybody. My name is Kaja Klimek, and I'm a film critic and film educator from Poland. And I'm really glad that I have a chance to talk to Kirsten Bonnén Rask, who is a feature film script tutor and works with Kids Kino Lab for many years already. It's great to have you here with us. Oh, there was another person in the background. Hello. Hello to you too, and bye. It's really great that we have a chance to talk about Kids Kino Lab and the documentaries also, but also features and fiction films for children that you work with for many years. But I need to take us a bit back. Can you tell us what got you interested in cinema for children in the first place? Do you still remember that? What was the first notion and the first projects that you started to work with and then decided, yeah, this is something for me?
Oh, I don't know, but I think that some of the first one was from the very start, the beginning of my career. It's 40 years ago. It was working with Bille August and Søren Kragh Jacobsen on some of their movies for children. Especially both of them were very reputed in Denmark, making features and TV series for kids at that time.
Mm-hmm. But what was interesting for you in this area? Because of course you can make one project like that and then decide, okay, let's try something else. But you, in a way, stayed for so many years with this area.
I'm not just stayed with this area. I've been working in every area possible in documentaries and in fiction. So it's not only this, but working with stories for kids are very often stories where you want to do something or you really look at what your audience want. It's not, and the people who are working with kids films are little, they are not so interested in, do I get an Oscar? Do I get everything like that? You know, it's more or less the kids area and the animation area. That's another type of people working there mostly. They're nice and kind, and they're more interested in working, making good stories than being famous. You know, I won't say that everyone in the other area is interested in getting famous, but there's much more elbows, much more everything. You know, it's harder world, more financing, more money, more Mercedes than there is in the children's movie. So it's very nice and relaxing to work with people who are interested in making movies for kids.
So when you switch from the area of kids kino to working with, let's call it adult cinema or different kinds of stories, what can you take from one area to the other and from this one to the other one? Because there must be some similarities of working as a script consultant in this area and that, or maybe I'm wrong. Just please.
No, most of it is similar. The only thing is that the main difference is that you are talking. You are more concerned in the kids area on your target group, and you're talking about the different. You have to focus on whether it's for kids 4 to 6, or if it's for 8 to 12, or if it's for the young audience, because you need to know the differences. You might not be so interested in adult film and finding out. Addressing your audience, because it's so broad anyway that you are more trying to address the whole world or an art public. So you need to focus more on that. That is the main discussion. Making films for children is like making films for adults. It's focus. The problems are just as, you have to take the problems just as, look at them just as carefully as you do in adult films. It's just on another level. You just have to address them in their level instead of an adult level. And you always have to be in eye level with your audience, no matter what.
Yeah, you described it in the best possible way, at the eye level with your audience, especially when you work for kids. It's good to get to their level in a way, just to have this empathy and contact. So it's a great advice for everybody that wants to really get in touch with the little humanity, let's call them that way. Okay. Let's talk a bit about Kids Kino Lab. What is interesting for you in this project, and why do you like to come back? Because as I know from people who are working with this project, you are really great with the people that you work, and you spend time with them and you talk a lot with them. So can you tell us a bit about the specificity of this project and why it's important for you to work with those young filmmakers and script writers?
I think I've made a lot of workshops. I think that I was making workshops long before workshops was known as a tool. I started working with workshops in the beginning of the 90s, inventing that is a very good form of working. I love it because I love having the one-to-one consultations with people, which I do a lot. But are you in a workshop? Then the participants, you are learning from each other, and they give good notes to each other. And the notes they're giving are at the same time giving me new ideas on how it makes a dialogue around the project bigger, which makes it possible for me to see new angles into the problems and how to solve the problems. And sometimes it's the worst note giving the best idea, because the worst note is sometimes it's always putting a finger on something. And having more people discussing a project in the group means that you are not necessarily sitting there working on be agreeing on this is very good. It's very good that someone doesn't like it that much, because that means that you have to defend the story or make it clearer in the way. That is one thing. I think as a working tool, it's extremely good. So I'm still making workshops too in other forums as well. But what is interesting in this forum, of course, is that it's so nice to meet people from other cultures, and not only the Danes and the Norwegians and the Swedes, which I have been working very much with. So it's interesting. It's not so much the traveling around, because some of the places are really tough to get to. They are not on the main road. But it's being together with people, talking about other things, meeting new people, knowing that you have relations more or less all over Europe, or at least in all the countries we have been working in. Gives you an insight. I'm not just a tourist when I go to Athens. I'm there working. I go to a private home, and you mentioned too that I always do a lot for the social contact. Yeah, but having a group which is socially well connected makes every discussion far easier. There are no problems in people can really be harsh on each other, because they have the relation outside.
I understand.
And that means that they're more honest than they would be. They're not just polite to being polite. They really like each other and they trust each other. And I can't work in a group which doesn't function. And I have come to other places in film schools or places like that, where I have been in a group of writers or directors who were not able to give notes to each other. They have been at the school for 1 year. They were not able because they mistrusted each other. And that's only because the group doesn't function.
It's really important, this kind of safe space that you can create for people to really be open towards each other. But can you tell us a bit about the methods, the methodology that you use when you work with other people's projects? What's important for you, apart from the discussion that we already said in here? So what is the process with a person when you work with them?
It's very important for me to know what they want to achieve. What is the story they really want to tell, and why is it important? And two, of course, to make the story important for the audience they want to address. And that is especially important when we're talking about kids' movie, because if there's so many films around there, you won't get them financed unless you can see the USP, the unique selling points today. You need to focus on that. But beside that, I work very much with asking about the characters, the motives in the characters, because if I know what they want, it's if you know what a character really wants to have, then it's easier to find ways to prevent it as long as possible. And very often,
the obstacles.
the obstacles, because if it's so easy to say I want to get that and this and that, and you get it in the next scene, the film is over.
Yeah, it's a really short film.
So you need to be sure that there are obstacles so that they can't, or there are people. But very often when you're asking about the motives and asking about the characters and knowing more about the characters, you get a lot of answers in the characters, because it's really there. And then I work very concrete. That asking, I'm looking for the holes in the script as well, the places where people just have written something, they know that it doesn't really fit anything, no one will notice, but I will. And that's why I ask the questions. And when you get the answers there, you can always find an answer. It might not be easy and you might have to change things, but when you find the answer, the story is far better. And it's sometimes it's just small things. People are writing down. There's some books lying beside the bed, but when you start saying, what kind of books? This is an adult, but it's children's books. Why is it children's books? Then you just starting up, developing, finding something in the story you might not know were there. Or is it the Bible? It's two different people. It's two different stories. It's very small things, but by filling in those things, trying to ask all those things, you learn more about your character, and you get the answers from your subconsciousness or with the help of that, and not just by forcing it into the story. That's one of the reasons why I never ask for the first and second plot point, because that is, if you point everything out on a line on the wall, you're looking on everything from outside.
Oh, yeah.
And if you ask for the characters, then if I see it a bit, you can see it as a line, you can see it on a wall, and you can put every film up like this in scenes. But when you watch the film, you don't see it like this. Then if this line is like this, then what you're doing when you're watching is you're following this line. And that is what I try to do when I work with, and that is one of the reasons why I'm asking about the characters, because the characters are in the story. They're not looking on themselves from outside.
Yeah, they don't understand what's going to happen next and why the things are going on like this, because they are in the middle of the things that are going on.
Yeah, and they always try to solve the problem in this very minute. They don't see the end of the story. They might have an idea of where they want to go, but they don't see the actual end of the story. And what the goal they might see or want might be a goal they never reach.
Yeah, they can also change their mind.
Yeah.
You need to know that when you're writing.
They can change their minds, or you have changed the possibilities of reaching it. If for instance, our main character is dreaming of being Olympic champion in skiing. And then in the very next scene, there's a car accident, which crosses the spine. They won't go there. You have prevented that. But then that character needs to find another dream or find out how he or she can do it anyway. Because you have stories from the real life. I've seen a documentary about he was paragliding, I think he was doing, and he was really, it was parachutes he was coming down with, and he crossed, and he was lame and he would never be able to walk and everything. And then he decided, no, that is not a life. That is not a life for me. So the doctor said it's not possible. But after 1 or 2 years, he was walking again, and he could paraglide, and he could jump from parachutes again.
Yeah, and, right. Life is writing the stories.
Yeah, and that is if you follow that line, then from his perspective, the doctors was looking on it on that line and saying, no, it's not possible. But he was in the line, and he was just following his dream and working, of course, extremely hard to achieve it.
Thank you for that example, because it really shows the way what you do during the workshop with the participants. And I wanted to ask you also about pitching, because I know that during the workshop there is the possibility to pitch your project in front of the group. And I was wondering, why do you think it's important for people to have this experience in this, as we said before, safe space for them?
To pitch?
Yes, to pitch.
You can see it from two different angles. You can say that, it's important for them to pitch because that is how films are financed today. So they need to be able to pitch. But what can be very good when you pitch, or it's not necessarily so that you need to pitch, but sometimes you have to ask the participants, what is the story really about? What do you want to tell? And very often, they're babbling. They can't make it short what they really want to tell. And I have been asking that kind of questions for many years, long before pitches was invented, because when you force people to tell it very, very short, then they found out they have too many lines in the story. They want to do too many different things at the same time, which is not possible. So it is a way of, and pitching is, when you pitch, you need to clarify what it is you really want to tell. And a good pitch they can start very differently. They can start from the personal background. Why am I so interested in this theme story? Or it can start with the mission, which can be a very good thing for a children's movie. You start with the mission, telling what do you want to do for who, for which reason. For instance, the Norwegian television series Skam.
Yes.
You know what it is? What is the English title?
I think it's recognizable as Scam everywhere, because it's the first TV series. Then there was those versions in different countries. We don't have one in Poland, unfortunately. It would be great to see.
Okay, they made a mission for themselves. They said, we 15-year-old girls has a lot of issues they can't discuss, which they think are very difficult. We want to create a story which unmystifies the most difficult thing to talk about. And the most difficult, and that gave them the help of finding out what should the story be about. They had rape or possible rape. They had the betrayal of a very good friend who was in love with the guy you fell in love with, and so on. They really took in tough issues, and they really worked with the issues, were not afraid of using the issues. And that was why it was important it was worth seeing for everyone else who was not in the target group. So the mission is one thing you need to clarify when you are pitching. you need to know why you're doing it. You need to clarify in your pitch, what is your target audience? What is your genre? What is your unique selling points? And that makes you more clear of what is the story you want to tell. And it's not a thing you do in the beginning where you just put a lot of things down on a piece of paper. It's something when you really, you have to know a lot about your story at that time. Hopefully you have worked so long with the story that you know your themes. You don't, some consultants think that you should know your theme very early. I don't think so. I think that it comes, if you can't force the theme into the story, but the theme will come there, and sometimes it changes. We had a story last year where the theme for the story was that modern cold family, a little bit out in time, a girl very lonely. The only relations was the robot in the house, taking care of food and everything. And then she got a friend who helped her being friends. That was the theme for the story for a very long time. And suddenly the writer put in a new scene in the beginning with a friend, because someone had said, shouldn't she have a friend? Maybe she should have a friend. And she put in 1 or 2 scenes, and that changed the whole thing. Yeah. Because suddenly it wasn't in a hard world. And the mother was there in the beginning, which she hasn't been. That changed the story totally. And the theme totally. And what suddenly popped up, there was a dead grandfather she was very fond of. He's changed to a father instead, which made it suddenly totally other story. And very many of the same scenes, of course, but the theme for the story was different. Yeah, the theme changed. So it changed not to be a lonely, hard, cold world, a story which a lot of children, in fact, knows, because their parents are too busy with other things, but it's a story about sorrow.
Yeah, and even when you pitch the story, it can be one thing, and then during the process it can change when you discuss it with other people and they give you notes. So it's great to know that it's such a dynamic situation, and you need to stay open at every moment of taking part with the workshop.
And that's why, as it can change, that is one of the reasons why it's not so smart to select a theme and say, this is the theme I want to do. Yeah. It's better to make it open, because that gives you the possibility of really let the story grow along the road.
Can we talk also a bit about the assistants, because now we are talking about you and the participants, but we know that there is also a group of people that is like in the middle of those things. What do you search in the assistants? What they need to have if they want to be part of the process, and why they are important for you?
I have to say that assistance isn't in that way important for me, because it's so nice that, of course, that the assistant is now taking care of arranging meetings and everything, but I'm used to doing that myself.
On your own.
Yeah, on my own, and it's nice not to do it, of course, but it's not necessarily necessary. You know, I could do that as well, and it saves some time, of course. But what I think is most important is that I think they can learn from the process, and that is more important for me that they do so. What is important when in the selection is that it's assistants who want to work with script development and be script consultants. I haven't selected people who write, it can make my writing better. because that's not the reason why they're there. They should work in the field of giving notes and want to giving notes. And I know that my first assistant is now doing a school workshop school for script consultants. So at least she had something with her from the workshop. So it's more, if they can benefit and learn and see something from the process, and we can discuss the process, then it's very good. And of course they're giving notes like everyone else, and they have the benefit in the group that they are always the next last one. They're the one just before me saying. So that means that they have the possibility, which I have too, to listen to everyone and grabbing notes from everyone, which can be useful in your own way of thinking.
I understand. Let's talk a bit about documentaries. It's a really interesting area in general. I mean, making the stories that seem to be real and they are like authentic, of course, but also a vision of the director, and this interesting creature, let's say, as a script of a documentary film, because it feels that, you know, how can you predict everything that's going to happen and write a script even before even making a film? But I know that documentaries are now a big part of Kids Kino Lab. Can you tell us a bit about the differences and working with this kind of process with future filmmakers?
You can say we have been working with, I have had 4 documentaries during the workshops in my group, and now we are starting the new lab for docs, where it's only documentaries. And when we make it only for documentaries, of course we can go into the editing phase as well. We can't in the other workshop. But what is important is that some of them comes with a written script, and that's wrong. You can't write a documentary script, because if you write what the characters are saying without having shot the film, it's just
it's not a documentary anymore.
No, and at least I can feel it. I know when I read it what is taken from things they in fact have done already, which they know, and what is just fantasy. You can see the difference. You can see if they have really real characters or not. And the important thing is here to work with that they know what they want to do, why they want to do it, what they want to achieve, which kind of characters, some kind of structure in the story. If it's a series, which we had last time, you need to know how can you build the series from that? Do you have new characters in each? What is alike in each series and so on? That is not so different from a fiction series, of course, but it's more. You only get to some kind of a treatment. You never get to a script. But if possible, and in at least 4 of the situations, we have had footage as well, which we could discuss. And last year, the first half of the film, they in fact had made, but they hadn't made a cut of it. So that they did that between the first session 1 and 2, or session 1 and 2. And suddenly, by doing that, they knew what the other half should be. They had intended that it should be one half with a girl from Guinea, and then they should find a girl in Belgium, which had a similar story. But she was poor thinking. She wasn't real, and they never grabbed that character. So when they had made a raw cut of what they had made, what they already had shot in Guinea with her, which was the first half of her story, they found out, no, it's her story and only her story. We'll return and see if that dream she has is fulfilled and how it is fulfilled and how life is. It's just a story about her. And so you can say there is a lot of similarities and there's a lot of differences. You can use a lot of the tools from fiction to documentary and the opposite. And having a documentary in your group is in many ways very good for the fiction people, because they can see what a real character contains of. And that is very useful when you create a fictional character as well.
And it's really interesting that this main difference is also that you already have something. I mean, like you have the footage and you can discuss that with the group and develop on that and maybe change your ideas, like with the story about the girl from Guinea. So I wanted to ask you, do you sometimes have this empty spaces in your mind that you work with somebody and you have no idea what to tell them? How do you go outside of this kind of situation that there is a blank? Because probably during those many years of your work, things like that happen. So then you watch a film and refresh your ideas, or what's your ideas to work around obstacles in your work?
I sometimes, when I read the treatment or the script or whatever it is, sometimes I think, God, what can I do here? There's nothing here. Yeah. It's not a good story. There's nothing in it. And we are going to have a meeting in a few moments or tomorrow. First of all, you can say, I have a hell of a lot of experience. And I think the good thing in this situation is that I never ask for plot points or have a fixed model which everything should fit into. So when I don't know what to say because I think it's too lousy, it's often that reason. Then in the meeting, I'll always start asking you, tell me a little bit about your story. And you start telling me a bit about your story. Tell me a bit about the background for the story as well. Why does it look like it does now? And you will tell me, give me, by doing that, a lot of material, because I can see why this doesn't fit together. And I get the ideas of how to solve it through that dialogue. But I think I can do it because I have been working with so many stories, and I have a very good connection to my subconsciousness, which means that in situations where I'm not in that situation, I don't know what to say. Suddenly, when we are sitting there, there's a problem. None of us can solve it. We all know what the problem is, and suddenly, poof, the idea is there. I don't know where it came from, but it came, and it functions. Or maybe I know where it came from, or how it came. Because I work very much with writing exercises, and even in situations like this, I ask people to write give them a situation they should write, and they're not allowed to move they have to write like this. Don't go back, and you're just writing, and you just start, and you might not know what you want to write, and they can start writing. Kirsten has given me an odd task. I don't know what to do. I have to write about, and I don't know why, and suddenly they're there. They know for sure it comes. I'm sure. I know from experience. And I have in the Kids Kino Lab, we have made several of these, and I have always said that the producer and the writer should write one each. They're not allowed to speak to each other. They just write, and they can choose any character in the story they want. In one of the situations, the producer and the writer chose a character which they were discussing if they should cut her out of the story. They choose that character. Oh. And both of them were writing a situation where that character were fighting for her right to be in the story. They hadn't discussed it. And they've came up with a solution that was about gingerbread and the recipe of gingerbread. And they both have written a situation where she, in fact, was the one having the recipe, the very good recipe. So she needed to be in the story. Yeah. And as she had the recipe and the main character's son didn't have it, they, by writing that scene, created a very youthful conflict between those two characters. None of them had discussed it. It came. In another situation.
Sounds like magic in the room.
Yeah.
Magic of the writing process.
Yeah. And for when I do, and I know that has happened in rather many situations. Mm-hmm. I, of course, I do it for the whole group. And that means that I can implement it into the stories in my group, what they come up with of solutions or possible solutions, because you can't just take the scene and put it into the script, but you can take the information you get here and you get it from your subconsciousness, and maybe you get it is there, but it's not always easy to grab it, and you can never get it if you just look on the line with the plot. Because that comes from here. Yeah. That is something you forces from your brain. But when you work the other way, you sometimes get things that we say, I didn't know that I knew that.
It sounds like, the things that you are saying remind me of one of my favorite films. I would, if I may refer to that, it's Inception by Christopher Nolan, that so many things are hidden deep down. You just have to go there and find it in a way. And the idea that it's deep there, it's rather simple, because Inception is a film about a man that really wants to go home to his children. And the rest of the story is just, on top of that. But the heart of the story is there. And we as viewers need to discover that. And I guess Christopher Nolan and his brother, when they were writing this film, also needed to discover what they really want to talk about in that in their movie. And the things that you are saying about the writing process and discussing the ideas with the participants during Kids Kino Lab workshop sounds exactly like that.
Yeah, and I can see too. I know that some of the people some of the participants from the other groups has said too, oh God, that solved the problem. As I didn't know the problems they had, I of course can't make, when I know what the problem is, they are trying to solve, or I can see problems they don't know that they are need to solve. I can give them an exercise which fit that. Mm-hmm. But when I make it in a bigger group, I have to make it more general and make a more general exercise. For instance, the worst situation in your life, the most embarrassing, or the most funny situation in their lives, depending. You take a slightly lighter version if you are working with kids and if you're working with adults, or the happiest moment in your life. And then they have to write them and find them. And it's a way to get answers on questions you can't get a right answer on here. They're more true if they come that way. And at the same time, it helps. It's a way of getting people to write true, to really write true as the scene should be and the relation should be. You can't do that only here. And sometimes I have used it sometimes where I had to say to the writer, no, that is not true. Go and ask your character once more and say, this is not the worst situation in your life. I know you are lying. There's something which is even worse. Okay, they go back, they write. And it's not the character who don't want to tell them. It's of course the writer who don't want to go to that very tough situation to write. But I never say that. I always, and sometimes they need to go back three or four times to make the character tell the really bad situation.
Yes, I understand.
And when they finally go there, they can feel the difference. There's two reasons for them making, which is hard for people to do. One thing, of course, is getting let it just do something without having control. So it's just saying, I don't need to control now, and go to the feelings. The other thing, of course, is that it can take some exercises to make them understand that when I say don't think of where you should use it in the story, because that won't function. You're not going to use this. But 2, 3, 4, 5, half of the group often tries to write so it fits their story and the character as they have decided they should be.
Yeah.
Those scenes are not especially good. But the scenes with the people who really uses the exercise for what it's worth and let go and just write, sometimes it's really amazingly good scenes. And you can you can really hear the difference. And when people, and it's not a matter of that those who write, in that case, the most beautiful scenes are better writer than the other ones. They're just better in letting go and try to see where will I end if I do, as she asked me.
It really sounds amazing, the way you work with the participants, and I guess all the people that are going to have a chance to watch our conversation going to feel encouraged to take part in the next season of Kids Kino Lab. Thank you on behalf
and
of...
I hope so too, that the people who want to work with documentaries to think that it's a good idea, because we are working a bit different in that one, because we are working much more hands-on. We're working much more with they have to go out and shoot and come back and discuss the shooting. That is more the documentary scripts, which we can't in the normal Kino Kids Lab.
Yeah, thank you very much for this conversation. I guess we have everything that we need. Good luck with the new projects, because the new lab just started and the workshops are on. And I hope we're going to have a chance to meet sometime in the future in the real world and discuss more films for children and also documentaries. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.